family that to me is just as real as those on the ground. And I actually worked with my husband before he passed for 20 years on the planet, but we got to experience the Allied Command Force, or it's a space force that goes universally between galaxies. So we can't really say that we only know one galaxy, and we learned about wormholes in space and how one can travel. And I was teaching that back in Hawaii a long time ago, like 89 to 94, while I was in the government. But I'd go over to the planetarium and help people explaining how travel happened. And I would use a pen and point from where I was in Hawaii and go down to Africa. And I've been to Africa in this reality and saw the stars. So I have a different reality, but that could be why I'm in communications now. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what I got from them as it's my turn to speak again. But I think we're rotating pretty good. So we'll just keep this rotation up so it rolls back down to Ken Johnston. So, Ken, okay, whatever you want to add.
Yeah, I find it's fascinating because we had kind of let down our shields a little bit, and we start talking with people, and you get to know them, such as just now, while TJ is telling us that when she had her first experience as a small child with extraterrestrials, and when you take a look at my family, was the third born to the family, and the third son, and the oldest boy, AR, 5 years older than me, dark hair, brown eyes, etc. And Jimmy, the middle boy, 17 months older than me, he had dark hair, brown eyes, etc. And then here I come along with blonde hair, pale skin, and hazel green blue eyes. So that whenever I was 2 years old, I was born with a cyst over my left eye, over the left eyebrow, and they decided they were going to operate and remove that cyst. Well, as soon as you got the cyst removed, my heart stopped beating and I stopped breathing. And fortunately, the doctor had just 2 weeks earlier had a course in giving what they call mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So he just apparently was totally threw the tools away and operating tools and grabbed me and started giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and called for assistance to come in. By the time they got there, I was sitting up and crying. Well, ever since then, everybody said that I was a lot different than my two brothers. And we look in the metaphysical side and at people that are what we call walk-ins. And I've been totally convinced. Now, for the things, and you look at my background in history and being a civilian astronaut and all that, those kind of things I never really talked about, because the average person, although they go really strange if it's something they haven't experienced and they haven't been connected with anyone that has had that kind of experience. But now I'm comfortable with coming forward that I probably am a walk-in, if you want to use that term, from I was a 3-year-old and up to where I am now. So I hope that whoever I am, I came with a lot of experience and stuff to help with the Allied Command and work with us bringing in direct contact extraterrestrial and bringing what we call full disclosure. So that's kind of my whole purpose in this thing is, who knows? I think we will be ready. And if they don't want to go and talk to President Trump or the people in Korea, whatever, they can come directly to our Allied Command and we can expose it over the radios and to the ACO organization, and we'll touch thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So this is where we're headed, and I'm ready to go the rest of the way with you. Next, come on, bring it up.
Well, I want to drop back to what Tommy was saying there. Personally, I believe that we have to consider that aliens in general, now I'm putting quotes in the air on each side of this, we cannot even fathom what their mindset is. We're not them. We can't understand their mode of thinking. So what we consider good and evil might not necessarily be the same thing they consider good and evil. And we have to remember this, you know, as we make contact with extraterrestrials. But I do believe that there are what we would consider evil ones, and then there are ones we consider good ones. But they don't necessarily consider themselves evil, if you understand what I'm saying.
I follow you.
We have to keep this in consideration. Yes, they probably got an agenda for them to come, you know, intergalactic distances to check us out. Or, I mean, they just wouldn't fly by once and, you know, or twice if they were just checking us out. I mean, they're here. Well, there's too many reports. Now, how they getting here or where they're coming from, that's a good question, too.
Yes,
so I just wanted to put that out there.
I agree with you. One of the things I would like to add to that is that if we really get into, and we're going to get into the theology side of things too, as I understand maybe, is that the evidence points to the fact that we are also DNA connected with one or two of the various species of extraterrestrials. So that is part of the reason that they can observe what they created by Homo sapiens sapiens on planet Earth, or initially on Mars and then transferring on over here to the United States when they had the big collision. So there's so much that has happened in the past several thousands of years, and I personally think that we're going to discover that as far as and I'm going to use the term the Allied Command, but in the form of intelligent beings that have been observing. It's been an experiment that has been started that now has the rights of our own not theology, but I'm trying to say the beings that we have matured to the point where we have intergalactic rights of existence. And that's where, yes, there are negatives. There's no question about that, but there are tremendous more positives. And I'm very anxious to see us keep moving to the point where we can communicate directly with. And you're right, to be able to discover what type of personality that they have. Do they decide, okay, well, everybody's kind of wacky there on the planet, let's just get rid of the planet and go, boom, it's gone. I don't think we're dealing with that because there's a higher supreme being that's in charge of all of us. So that gets into the religious side. Okay? All right. Let's don't go boom. Let's go there.
The spiritual side, how's that?
Yeah, that's right.
Tommy? Oh, wait. No, it's Ahmad next, right? Ahmad, don't you follow?
I don't. I feel he was just answering it.
Oh, okay. Then it's back to Tommy again, and then back to me. Go ahead, Tommy.
All right, Ken. I have two friends involved in NASA. I don't know if you know their names. I don't know if I want to say their names over the air. Both of them were killed.
Let me talk about astronauts.
No, people. My one friend actually worked on all space probes. He designed special parts that they couldn't get or make. He had a couple-ton machine that he could make any part that they wanted. And he did.
A good friend of mine that was there, I can't remember his name right now, that's exactly what he did, and had a separate portable office building and factory, so to speak, out the backside of the Lunar Receiving Laboratory. I used to go out there all the time and meet with this.
I'll tell you, his first name was Robert.
Yeah, what year period are you talking about?
Well, I guess I've been involved. I've been in Hawaii for 23 or 24 years ago is when he was taken out. His whole family. So we had plans. Because he was told that he couldn't look at UFO stuff, and he came over our house, and I was showing him all kinds of UFO stuff. And we were going to set up a thing because he wanted to create a private community, where we were going to move, because he had the land, he had that machine, and he said we can build and create anything we want. And then all of a sudden, we were going to have a pool party, and his whole family disappeared that day.
And never heard from him again?
Just vanished out of the air.
I left NASA at the Johnson Space Center in Houston in let's see, that would have been October of 1980. So it's if it didn't happen before then, I wasn't in direct contact with them. So, but I do know there was a gentleman that I visited with. He even helped me make my first 12-inch diameter primary lens for my first big giant telescope. and he helped me with a machine he had there to be able to polish it into the concave scope so that it would focus the images into the lenses so that I could look at it on my big telescope that I built myself. So I always like to get my hands dirty and get in and get the work done.
We'll have another friend who sent us a letter. I was lecturing with Sergio 18 around the United States for Global Sciences, and we got a letter in the mail the day before the conference. This is a warning. Please, you have no right to interfere with what's going to happen in the UFO world. Sit back and just watch. He said, this is not a threat. This is just a warning. I can say his first name. His first name was Matthew. He actually was involved with sending that space probe up into space with all people's information in it. Right after that, he was killed 6 months later. So, yeah, I'm dealing with people that were involved in that at some levels. Again, I have the actual letter. I could always send it to you if you're interested. But the name was blocked out.
Yeah, I saw
so it's a real letter. I mean, it was text. It was text to us the day before we went to do this conference. And I don't know if you ever heard of Global Sciences, but they used to have people from all over the world to come lecture at it. And I met just about everybody. It was
Global Sciences
we had just
Conference, right? I've seen it. Ted Gunderson was in front of one of those. The FBI agent.
They used to have one like every 3 or 4 months somewhere in the United States. 90% of the time, somebody was killed coming there. The one that had the antidote for anthrax was arrested at the airport before he got on a plane. He never got to it, but he got out. They couldn't put him in jail because he didn't have anthrax, which is what they said he had. But I got to meet incredible people that way. But there was people that came to the conference that say they were aliens, and people thought they were. And I was doing that for a couple of years. But he died, and the whole Global Sciences just ended. But it was interesting because, I mean, I met all the most famous people that tried to say things and talk. But Sergio and I were probably the top of the line because Sergio and I had the most pictures of UFOs, aliens, creatures, and you name it, than anybody else in the United States. And I mean, we actually had thousands and thousands of pictures and videos, which we started showing them.
What happened to them? What happened to your pictures?
Oh, no,
okay,
he copyrighted everything. He actually sued Whitney Schreiber.
Oh, you say they were confiscated? Did you say they were confiscated?
No, they were copyrighted.
Okay,
so
very good. I was going to tell you because once we landed on the moon, I left the big vacuum vacuum chamber testing and went over to the Lunar Receiving Laboratory, and I became the director of the Data and Photo Control Department there, which meant that I had access to all the original negatives and films and pictures that were taken on each mission, and went over to the photo lab, and then I would have scientists coming from all over the world to get their samples of the lunar rocks and lunar material that was brought back, and they would want to have pictures from orbit, the area where their sample came from, as well as on the surface, close-ups of the sample, so that they could identify what the orientation would be with respect to solar wind and the particles hitting. So I had original undoctored copies of every picture they had, and then after we finished up in Apollo 12, 14 actually, 13 had to come back with 14. I got a direction from my supervisor that said, okay, I want you to get rid of all of the pictures. I had 5 copies of everything in filing cabinets. I had about 20 filing cabinets down this room. And when the scientists would come in, I could go and pull a picture they needed for their sample just immediately and everything they needed. But I was told to get rid of all of them but one set. And I argued with my supervisor of the Brown & Root Northrop Corporation that ran the laboratories. And I went back and forth. And I said, look, why can't we donate them to the universities and people that want to do some research? Finally he said, I don't care what you do, get rid of all but one set. So that was my tacit approval, and I took and dumped one in the dumpsters, one whole set, and then kept one of them there. And anyway, I wound up with one set that I put inside a duffel bag, huge duffel bags, and then took them home and saved them for years and years. And finally, I had knock on the door, and you talk about the men in black. Well, they wanted to know if I had any. They were going around to all of the people that had worked on the space program and see if they had saved or kept any of the records and information, and they were confiscating them. And of course, with a top secret clearance and all, my position was, well, no, everything belonged there. We just left everything in, and so they left me alone. And this was back. Oh gosh. Well, anyway, when I finally